All right, and we are underway. Moving along, Sonic Blaster has begun. There's King Captain as well. Both players going to be moving through the area. Again, in the prologue section, there is no dashing, so it's just going to be jumping as fast as possible to be able to keep up speed as much as they can. Whenever the players are jumping, they get a little bit more movement than when they're walking on the ground, so they're going to be doing that whenever possible. Once they get their dash here at the end of the prologue, they'll be doing that as much as possible instead. Again, for those of you just coming in, Sonic Blaster has a PB of 37 minutes, 19 seconds, and King Captain has a PB of 39 minutes, 52 seconds. So fairly close times with each other. Should be a very, very good race. There we go. Both players are finishing up the prologue now. Now we're going to get into Chapter 1 where the action starts. A lot of the first couple of chapters have been fairly laid out. There's not a whole lot of variation that you tend to see. Ready Sonic Blaster is starting off there. Nice set of dashing as he progresses through the first couple of rooms. You'll see maybe a little bit of wall bouncing here and there. There's one. You're able to kind of skip going around that block by wall bouncing on top of it and going around. Looks like he's having just a little bit of trouble here. King Captain opting for a route with quite a bit more wall bouncing, as you can see. And there we go. Both players are moving through very, very quickly. You can see a nice little reverse dash there from King Captain. It allows you to skip over the top. He's having a little bit of trouble with it. We'll see if we can get it this time around. Yes, there we go. Third time's the charm. And he continues on. Sonic Blaster continuing up in Chapter 1 here. He's going to be crossing the gorge very shortly. Looks like so far maybe there's a little bit of things to shake off. There we go, Sonic crossing over. You can actually use a Hyper Dash to cross over. He's opting to go ahead and use the block instead. And stepping into just the second to last room here for Sonic Blaster. He's going to go ahead and drop off to a nice little perfect bounce off of that, off of the small wall with the spikes, and off he goes. And there we go. We've gone ahead and had just a small bit of blackness, but we are back. Sonic Blaster has entered the dream area of Chapter 2. He's going to be going through all of these dream blocks very quickly, making his way up to where you will be chased by Battleline. King Captain is just starting off on his Area 2 as well. You can see when these dream blocks are involved, the players are going to be doing a lot of dashing. Since you retain your dash coming out of it, you really are free to, just as soon as you come out, dash again. You're going to see a lot of that as players go through. King Captain has entered his dream phase as well. Wasn't quite able to get to the spot that he wanted to, but it's a very, very minimal time loss there. Sonic Blaster going up through the lock switches, and he is able to go ahead and get all of them in one go. It's a very fast route to do it that way. He's going to keep on moving along. The only rooms that are really troublesome to die in are right at the end of these next two that Sonic's coming up to. So as long as he can go through both of them, he'll maintain a very nice speed going through this chapter. There we go. King Captain is coming up behind, just entering the Battleline phase himself. There we go. Sonic Blaster is through, waiting just a little bit, but definitely not a large time loss by any means. And it's definitely a safer strategy to wait a little bit rather than trying to push them. Players are going to go ahead and navigate through this one section here with the dream blocks, and after they reach a telephone in just another room here for Sonic Blaster, they're going to have to go back through the area having awoken again. All right. You can see, again, in the first couple of chapters, a lot of this is fairly planned out. All of it is really planned out, but there's much less variation in the first couple of chapters. You'll see a lot of these dashes are very set. King Captain is going and leaving his battle and chase as well, doing a lot of hyper dashing. Sonic Blaster moving into Resort, and things are going to start getting very technical. A lot of new players have a lot of trouble in Resort because not only do you have to memorize the initial entry into a room, but you also have to have a backup strategy for it. There's going to be a lot of dust balls moving around, and the layout of the dust balls is going to be different the first time you come into the room compared to when you respawn in it. Sonic Blaster coming up through here, and ooh, unfortunately hitting that first dust. You can see again when he respawned, they were just in a slightly different timing, so you have to change up a lot of things in this chapter, which can make it very hard for new players. But if an experienced player is able to get both of those strategies down, then there's not a huge amount of difference that you have to go through. So it can be a roadblock to newer players learning the game, but not so much once you've got the experience down. King Captain is finishing up Chapter 2 and following behind. So far, so good for Sonic. He's got his key going through his first door now. It's an in-game time of 5:11. Currently, King Captain only has an in-game timer of 5 minutes, so there's a little bit of in-game time discrepancy between the two players. Though Sonic is up by just a little bit here. King Captain again doing what seems to be a lot more dashing than Sonic. Sonic appears to be going for maybe slower, perhaps safer strategies, whereas King Captain is opting for a lot of very fast strategies. So we'll have to see if slow and steady is going to pay off, or if King Captain's going to be able to come up behind him and take him. You'll see there are a lot of rooms that are able to be circumvented either by hyper dashing or wave dashing, and being able to get your dash back. You're able to kind of skip a lot of this. You'll see on King Captain's screen, instead of having to go over a lot of these platforms, he's able to do one extended dash. And by using his dash at the very end that he's gotten back, he's able to skip a lot of that and save a lot of time. Players are going to be doing this pretty much for the entire rest of the run to circumvent a lot of rooms and save a lot of time. Sonic is now navigating the mess, moving on to cleaning up his first component there. There we go. He is getting near to the end of it, just a couple things to go. You'll see he's trying to do a spike jump there by moving outwards from the spikes. The spikes will not actually kill the player, and by continuing to move out while lining the lower half of Mantle into the wall, they're able to jump off of it. And again, there's a couple areas of the run, just a few here and there, where you're able to save a good bit of time by doing that. King Captain coming along with his second key, so he's just going to be entering the mess. Sonic is moving through part 2 here. Again, you can see that every entry into the rooms is more or less planned in such a way that they've already accounted for however the dust is going to be in the room. You know, they hyper dash in at a very specific height, they're coming at a very specific speed, and by doing that, they're able to avoid what could be a large problem for them. There we go. King Captain begins the cleanup as well. Sonic is moving on to his third. There we go, a nice hyper through there. And Sonic is going to go through with very little trouble from this dust so far. It seems like both players are navigating very well. A little bit of a hiccup there from King Captain on his. We'll see if he can get it on the second go around. There we go. And he slides through. Sonic has now successfully finished cleaning all of it up, so he's going to be able to obtain the key that's trapped at the center now. You'll see the room progressively became emptier and emptier as you hit all of those blocks. And now that you've cleaned up all of it, you're able to get to it and progress on. The time about 3:33 to get through that section. It's a very good hotel so far. There we go. King Captain is moving on to his second mess there. And Sonic is moving up towards the top of the hotel, where the player is going to have a short chase sequence with Oshiro, who's going to follow the player and try to dash into them. And that'll be the end of Chapter 3. There we go. King Captain's moving through at about the same pace that Sonic was going through. Again, he's a little bit behind here, but not overly much. Sonic has managed to get across the bridge. You see that he reset at the end of it. And the reason for that is, once you get the key will stick with you, whether you die or not. So by resetting, you're able to appear back on the other side of the bridge and save yourself a little bit of time having to cross all the way back over manually. All right, Sonic is moving up onto the roof now. You'll notice that Oshiro is chasing the player. It'll kind of align with their vertical height on the screen, and after a short delay dash towards the player, there's that big warning kind of lightning bolt to show the player where that's going to be happening. This is, again, one of those segments that for newer speedrunners can be very, very difficult, very, very frustrating, because you kind of have to have a regular strat and a backup strategy for most of these rooms. Especially the last couple of rooms can be very, very time-consuming if you die near the end of them. And, you know, if you end up dying once, suddenly the room's a little different. If you die, you know, again, then you're a little bit frazzled, and each of these deaths are large, large amounts of time loss. But once you get experienced at it, being able to kind of get your strategies down to a science and avoid having any trouble with it, it makes it a lot easier. You'll see that Sonic has actually opted to retry the room as soon as he comes in. I assume that's because he has a strategy for the respawn that's a little bit more consistent, so by just dying right off the bat, he's able to immediately enact that without any trouble. So it can be some cases where actually retrying the room can make things a little bit quicker and a little bit safer for you. There we go, chapter complete. That is a very, very fast resort. Meanwhile, King Captain is coming up to the bridge, so he's getting very near to the Oshiro section. You can see already that King Captain's timer is actually a little bit higher than Sonic's, despite Sonic being in the Golden Ridge section now. So Sonic has a bit of a lead at this point. It depends on how quickly King Captain can go through the Oshiro section. But he's going to have to nail some of these strategies. He does have what seems to be a faster game plan. So as long as he can perform these faster strategies, he will start eating away the time lead that Sonic has. Sonic going through Golden Ridge, the two big things of this area, or I guess the three big things. You see the clouds. Here is some wind coming. It'll blow the player in the direction that the wind is going, causing them to either have trouble moving forward, or it'll push them forward and they'll have to kind of make sure they don't go forward too quickly. And then there will be some directional blocks that show up later on in the run. A lot of the directional blocks are used, but used in such a way that you skip a lot of the screen in particular. You do have to use this one to kind of navigate up, but you see that by doing a wall bounce combined with a spike jump, they can skip it. Here you can see this directional block gets skipped by doing some wall bouncing. So in general, taking as little time as possible on these directional blocks because they scroll at a certain speed is the best way to save some time here. King Captain going through the Oshiro section here, just a couple more jumps to go. Oh no, caught right at the end. That's going to be a little bit rough for him. He's going to have to go through again now, and it looks like another little hiccup there, so hopefully he'll be able to recover in just a second here on this attempt. Sonic Blaster moving through. You can see that the wind alternates between blowing with or against the player, and in that way it kind of forms the puzzle of each room. Again, with some handy wave dashing, an extended wave dash there allows the player to skip huge areas of these rooms. And here we can see through a little bit of creative extended dashing as well, you're able to take the cloud up to the directional block and skip the other two. And again, in that way, just trying to skip these directional blocks, you use them as little time as possible. You're able to really save a lot of time. All right, so far Sonic is having a really good Golden Ridge. It really seems to be a case of just a very, very consistent, precise strategy that has really worked down to something very well replicated. There we go, and as soon as I say that, we see something a little fancy. A nice little wall bounce there has put him into the final section. The wind's going to blow much harder here, harder than it has in any other part of the chapter, to the point that you really can't walk against it very well whatsoever. Instead, he's going to have to rely on a lot of dashing. Additionally, you'll see snowballs coming from the far side of the screen to hit the player. If the player hits the top of them, they'll get their dash back. If they hit dead on with it or underneath it, then the player will have to go back to the beginning of the room and take a death. So far you can see this is all planned out very, very precisely. There's very little hesitation, there's very little waiting, and this is all done very quickly. He's already through all of the snowball sections. We've only got 2 more screens to go before the final area. And King Captain is going through his Golden Ridge as well now. Still having a couple of hiccups here and there. There we go, and he is moving on to the next room, and Sonic Blaster is moving on to the next chapter. That is a fantastic time for Golden Ridge. Again, for those of you coming in that might have missed it, Sonic Blaster's PB is 37 minutes 19 seconds. That's compared to a 39:52 for King Captain. I'm not entirely sure what Sonic's splits are, but this does seem to be in line for a PB, so that could be very exciting to see. Moving through Temple, there's going to be a couple of mechanics in Temple that will what kind of address they come to. First one is these red bubbles, which will take the player in the direction they dash in, or just facing whenever the delay timer ends. And it'll go until it hits a wall or until the player dashes out of it. There we go. There's a nice little reverse dash. Normally the player would have to go get a bubble and bring it to this section, but by doing a little dash off of that block, they're able to move on. Speaking of those blocks, they will move along a set track when the player dashes in that room, and then slowly move back to their original position. So by timing your dashes in certain ways, you're sometimes able to have the blocks lift you, like we saw at the very beginning of the chapter, or get into a position that you can use them. King Captain moving along through Golden Ridge. He's maybe about halfway through it so far. And Sonic is going to be coming up. Normally, in a casual playthrough, the players would need to find a key for a door up here, but by taking these bubbles that are hidden in the floating block there, he's able to just completely skip over it, which, as far as I know, just about everybody does. If you're just kind of routing it out yourself and aren't really familiar with some speedrunning strategies, you might go try and find the key anyway. But there's really no particular reason to do it once you start routing. All right, Sonic is moving up towards the unraveling. He's going to go into the mirror now in just a moment. There we go. And then the player is going to go through a number of sequences where they're chased by a Seeker, which is a creature that looks exactly like this. And they will kind of dart towards the player and take a little curving arc towards them. So the player's going to have to maneuver around them for a number of rooms while also getting a number of lock switches. King Captain is in his final section of Golden Ridge. And again, he's got to fight against those winds and the snowballs, so it's a lot to juggle. Again, if you have a route and a strategy plan for it, it can be easy, but once you end up respawning in a different area, or you have a different entry point, it can be a little bit trickier, so hopefully able to make it through on the first tire for all of these. Here we go, we see the first Seeker on Sonic Blaster screen, and now we're going to see one in just about every room for a number of them here. Fortunately, the Seekers can be helpful. They are able to get these lock switches, so in a number of ways the players are going to use these Seekers to either hit lock switches or use them for momentum, or just stay out of the way. Either way, they definitely want to move through as quickly as possible. There we go. You can see a lot of strategies over on Sonic's screen where he's actually using the Seeker to help get some of these, which does save a little bit of time. And King Captain has just finished his Golden Ridge, so he's going to be entering the temple as well. And Sonic is moving on to Search. Search skip is probably the most well-known skip in this game. It's certainly the biggest time saver. Normally players would have to go get a number of keys to unlock a running track for the red bubble. However, using a reverse dash here, which is going to be shown in a second on Sonic Blaster screen, the player is able to tap the wall and immediately jump in the other direction, make it through all of these, skipping a large amount of time. It is the biggest skip in the game. I don't know the exact amount of time save. I guess it depends on your skill level, but it's somewhere around a minute. It can be quite large. All right, Sonic is moving up towards the rescue stage of this. Theo, who is a second character that occasionally will accompany or pop out and talk to the main character in the game, has been imprisoned in a crystal, and the player has to carry him through room after room while avoiding these Seekers and hitting switches and avoiding throwing Theo down any holes or hitting crystals. And it can be a lot to take in. This is another major hiccup for newer players. And there you go. You can either throw the crystal at a switch to open it up, or you can dash into the switch yourself. You'll see a lot of throwing Theo while dashing right afterwards. Being able to do that means that you can maintain speed because you go very, very slow while holding him and walking, and you are not normally able to dash while holding him. Letting go and dashing is a nice compromise to maintain speed, but it does take a good amount of control and consistency. King Captain is moving up towards his unraveling here. He's going to be going into the mirror in just a moment, and Sonic Blaster is moving into just a couple more rooms to go before the final. Having a little bit of, there we go. He's moving into the next one now, and it's just one more room, I believe. There we go. This is the final room where the player has to really worry about any of the Seekers, and then it'll be one more room where, for all intents and purposes, you can't really die in it. Occasionally, there can be a slight issue where a wall comes down on top of the crystal, but it does not happen very often. And there we go. There's the temple complete for Sonic Blaster. Meanwhile, King Captain is moving along. He is going right into the meat of the unraveling here, where he's going to have to deal. He's going to have to be dealing with all of the Seekers. Sorry there. And Sonic has moved on to Reflections. Reflections is the penultimate chapter in an any percent. The player is going to use these feathers, whereupon they can freely fly for a short time. And you're going to see those recurring throughout most of the rest of the chapter. If you did not skip the cutscene, there would be kind of a short interlude with Battleline, who would then hurl the player down to the foot of the mountain, which is why everything is suddenly very jungly and crystally. The player is going then to have to work their way to Battleline and have a little fight sequence with her before moving on to the final section of the game. King Captain has moved into his search. Again, he's almost certainly going to be doing the search skip, followed by doing his own Theo rescue. And Sonic is going to be moving through a number of rooms. An interesting section of this chapter is that Sonic is going to be coming up to a number of options where he can either take a top or bottom path. And both paths eventually lead to the exact same place, but there is an option that you can take, and it's one of the few areas of the game where you can freely kind of choose which path you want to go on to progress in the game. You can see these blocks here, Kevin blocks, as they've kind of been named by the community after the person that voices the grumbling sound from them. By hitting them, the block will then move towards the direction that the dash came from. So by using those, you can, again, progress. The other area there is the pinball bumper, which will bounce the player away upon touching it and give them their dash back as well. You'll see in a lot of cases, a lot of these pinball bumpers kind of get skipped over just by way of having the dash, but occasionally you do end up using them, like seen here. King Captain has moved on to the rescue section. You'll notice that the in-game timers are fairly even at this point now, 2107 to 2104. So Sonic has maintained and gained a little bit of a lead over King Captain now. So we're going to have to see some really incredible play from King Captain if he's going to recover from this. But anything can happen. Until the run is over, anything can happen. Sonic Blaster having a little bit of a hiccup there. Going with what I would call kind of the more standard route in a speedrun. You do see occasional variations in routing, whether people pick the top or bottom path, but I think this is the one that I see most commonly. There we go. They're coming to one more room here, this being the last one before they will see the granny again. And afterwards, they're going to start seeing some definite signs of Battleline as they kind of pursue her. You'll see there's her hair on the screen kind of retreating away from the player as they chase after. All right, and King Captain has entered his last room for the temple. Sonic Blaster moving through the shortcut with very little trouble whatsoever. Nice and smooth. Sonic Blaster, if a word had to be picked for how his race is going, that word would have to be consistency. We've seen over a lot of these chapters strategies that might be considered not quite as fast, but he's able to do them with very, very little margin of error whatsoever, which means that despite doing strategies that may be considered slower, he does have a very, very fast time. And it also, I imagine, leads to a very consistent thing. There was a small retry there, little hiccup. We didn't quite make it to where you can skip the cutscene, but all in all, that's a very, very low amount of time loss. And King Captain is in his reflections as well. Sonic has entered the Battle and Fight, which can be a very, very high-energy section of the game. Battle-In is going to be firing lasers or sometimes energy pulses. There's going to be rocks falling from the ceiling. It's going to get a little bit crazy, but all of this is perfectly scripted. There is no RNG in this game. It's all completely planned out. So every time you play through this, whenever you hit her in that first spot, she's going to move to these exact same spots. And in doing that, the players are able to, again, route out a strategy on how to deal with that. All right. Moving through, King Captain is moving up through the first section using the feathers, while Sonic is dodging some very, very nasty energy balls there. And again, you're going to see a lot of extended dashing, a lot of hypers, a few wave dashes here and there. Occasionally you'll even see a wall bounce in this, though. That does kind of depend on the player. But the goal is just in each screen to hit Battle-In and make her move to the very end of it, and once you have hit her all the times required for that room, she will retreat downwards into the next section so that you can as well. There we go, King Captain taking the bottom route, which I don't see quite as often. There we go, moving along with no trouble. And there we go, Sonic Blaster is coming up to just about the interlude of the fight here. There will be a little halfway spot in between this, where Battle-In and the player will interact and have a little bit of dialogue with each other. Here it is right here. And then we'll come to the second half of the Battle and Fight. Ooh, a little bit of trouble there trying to get through that. Make it on the second try just fine. And King Captain is in the series of choice rooms, so he's trying to make his way to this section. And this can be a very difficult section of the fight. Again, like some other chapters, dying in these rooms can really change the strategy on what you need to do, at least for the very beginning of it. Once you've hit Battle-In for the first time, things kind of get back on track, but having a backup strategy, if you happen to die the first time you're trying the room, can be essential for some of these. Some of them, they just don't quite work if you try and do the same thing on a backup strat compared to the initial entry. There we go, Sonic is coming into the last room here where he's going to have to dodge a series of lasers while using these gold feathers. And afterward, the two are going to make up and he'll get a double jump, or a double dash, I should say, to go through the final chapter of the game to scale the summit. And there we go, he has completed the Battle and Fight. You see Madeline's hair is now a different color initially. It's going to be that pink color rather than the red. That indicates the player has two dashes. Upon using the first one, they will have their hair turn to the red color, and then it'll turn to the blue after they've used their second dash. King Captain trying to get the shortcut here. And there we go, he is through, so he'll be going down through the water elevator and then moving into his own Battle and Fight. You can see there on King Captain's screen, as soon as he entered it, he retried. Because retrying at the beginning of that screen actually puts you right at the beginning of the little water elevator, so you can save just a little bit of time by doing that. And Sonic Blaster is in the final section of the game. Now, I should say the final chapter, because there's quite a few sections to go. Instead, the player is going to be going through small little vignettes of every chapter they've gone through. So you can see here the kind of background of the reflections area they were just in with the crystals. They'll then move up to the city, then they'll go to the resting site, then they'll go through the resort, then Golden Ridge, and finally the temple before going into the summit proper. So it's kind of passing by all the things that they had already gone through. Each section will take somewhere around a minute with some variation depending on what section. And you'll kind of revisit the concepts and mechanics of each section as you go through them. So far you're seeing with that double dash, the player is able to go much faster through all of this. You'll see a lot of wall bouncing as well. Just in general, it's going to be a lot of circumventing of things. You know, instead of having to go use bounce pads, instead of using, you know, platforms, the player's really going to be looking to maneuver around as much of this as possible by using that double dash and using their extended hyper dashes and wave dashes. King Captain is moving through his battle and fight. He's approaching the interlude point. Sonic is leaving the 500 section, moving into 1000 here. And the 1000 section is, in many ways, probably one of the most fluid sections of the game. Having a double dash and going through these dream blocks that give the player back their dashes when they go through just means that you can really, essentially, never stop dashing. You can really be doing it just about non-stop. You see so far Sonic has gone through about 4 screens now, maybe 5 screens now, and that is, I think, the first time his feet have actually touched the ground. It can definitely feel like a very satisfying section of the game. So he's going to be going through that. So far, very, very precise. A couple of hiccups here and there, but not really any deaths, just a couple of, you know, kind of stop, reset, let's try it again point. Meanwhile, King Captain is in the back half of the battle and fight. There's a couple of small hiccups for each player. You'll notice in the final section of each of these little meter markers, there's going to be a purple orb. And when the player touches it, Battlein is going to come out and give the player a small boost and move to a separate section. By touching all of those purple orbs, Battlein will then give the player a large boost up to the next area. We'll revisit the dust balls here at 1500. Going through a couple of lock switch rooms as well. A lot of these can be very large sections. This is one of the hardest parts in the game for new players, and I think I keep throwing that phrase around a lot, but there can be a number of very difficult areas. In this case, having to kind of manage strategies and worry about the timing of this dust in what amounts to very, very large rooms can mean that the player can make it almost to the end and then have a large time loss through a death, so players do have to be careful. Oh, Sonic's in a tough spot here. There's some nice neutral jumping to be able to stay there. Normally, when you run out of energy, the player will start slipping down, but by doing these neutral bounces, the player is able to keep on the wall without losing any of their actual height, and by doing that, they were able to maintain their place until it was safe to come up. A little bit of a hiccup here for Sonic, trying to get through these. There we go, now they're through. And King Captain has just finished his battle line as well, so both players are going to be entering the summit. Sonic is moving on to the Golden Ridge section of Summit. There we go. And he has just entered Golden Ridge. King Captain just moving up to the exiting of Reflection there. There is, again, you can see there is about, at this point, a 4-minute discrepancy between timers here. Okay, there's that wind again. The wind blows very, very hard in this section as well, so it can be very troublesome from the player. Later on, during the final section of it, the 3,000 meter mark, the wind will actually be blowing up and down. But for here, it's still going to be the left and right that we saw in Golden Ridge. Sonic Blaster here, by doing an extended hyper dash off of that directional block, he's able to get just enough momentum to hit the other one. Instead of having to ride that directional block all the way to the rest of the screen, which can take a large number of seconds, he's able to combine that with a wall bounce and save a lot of time, skipping essentially half of the room. King Captain has cleared his first section. He's moving on to the 500 meter, and oh no, Sonic Blaster just barely not catching that gem there. He's going to go ahead and skip the second gem. And we are moving on to the temple section of Summit for Sonic. King Captain looks to be going very quickly for his first few areas. There is a large amount of time discrepancy, but again, if Sonic Blaster has one particular section that just really holds him up, and I've seen some interesting hang-ups, you know, some players who have hit a section that they've practiced time and time and time again and never had a problem with it. You know, there's a mistake, there's flustering, all that can happen. So, you know, again, until both players cross the finish line, or I guess until the person in first crosses the finish line, you really never know what's going to happen in these things. There we go, some nice dashing for Sonic Blaster to get through that area. Very quick, very clean, very precise. We're going to see another one of these spike jumps here, and by doing this, in order to get up there, the player is able to skip a section where they would have to get another red orb, and they're able to skip and save. It depends, it's about 20 seconds, I think, just depending on how clean you're able to do it normally. There we go, still moving through it. King Captain is moving through his 1000 section now. Again, seeing that similar fluidity. And there we go, Sonic is in the final area of the 2500 meter section. This can be, again, a very, very long room. And having any trouble in it can cause massive amounts of time loss, so hopefully we're not going to see any trouble here as he moves to the end. And just one last section here. And there we go. Sonic is through and is moving on to 3,000 meters. King Captain back on 1,500. Now we're going to see something a little bit different. Through just about every other chapter of the game, checkpoints were based on entering a new room, and dying would take you back to the beginning of that room. But in 3000, the rooms are so large that instead a number of flags have been planted with a number on them, counting down from 30 until the very final one. Touching any of those flags results in a checkpoint for the player, and you'll see them at just about every kind of section of climbing or dashing is going to result in another flag. So the checkpoints are going to come very, very quick and fast here. There we go. There is the downwind as well, which we had kind of mentioned earlier. It really prevents the player from jumping, climbing up walls, jumping up walls. Really, it's going to prevent quite a bit besides actually dashing up them, so any climbing is going to be much, much more difficult. We're going to see that for a few more flags, and then we're going to move into an upwind instead. King Captain is finishing his 1,500 and coming up into the 2,000. He's going to need a really, really good 2,000 through 3,000 here, 2,000, 2,500. And the final section if he wants to catch up. And again, we're seeing a number of wall bounces. Pretty much anytime you have to go up one of these walls, in a lot of cases it's going to just be quicker to do a wall bounce up it, gain a little bit of momentum, go up the wall just a little bit faster. This area tends to be very precise. There's a lot of ways in which you're forced into using your dash in a certain way. And because of that, it really just comes down to how clean and precise can you do it. There we go. Sonic is through the lock switch. King Captain is dodging some snowballs. And there's a nice little bounce to get over the wall and avoid having to go get that green gem. King Captain still moving through, going through the long, long elevator directional block section. Not a whole lot you can do to skip this. There we go, he is through and still moving on. Sonic is going to go through one more section of upwind here, and then it's going to be no wind whatsoever. It's just going to be you, your dashes, and a mountain to finish it off for the last couple of flags. And there we go, he has exited the wind section. Just a couple of flags to go. Again, Sonic Blaster's PB is a 37 minute 19 second. Having a little bit of hiccup on flag 3. There we go, we've got the feather. And here's feather number 2. King Captain is in the temple, moving through. Nice alternative way of maneuvering there, and he's going to be doing the same wall jump. There we go, got it in 1 to get that key. Very clean, very well done. Sonic is moving up here. The very final section, flag 1. Some people might expect flag 1 to be the hardest since it's the very final thing, but on the contrary, it's a relatively light, relaxing final ascent. Just a couple of crystals here and there. And that is time for Sonic Blaster with a 37:31. So not quite a PB, but still a very excellent time. There we go. They have finished. And now that King Captain's timer has passed the 37:31, we'll go ahead and cross over, get his audio going on here. And he's going to be finishing up his temple section here very quickly. Hello there, Sonic. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rick. A little disappointed there at the end. Much.
Yeah, you were very, very close to finishing that section. There was just that hiccup between flag 3 and flag 2. Were you kind of tasting the PB? Were you pushing a little hard for it?
Well, way back at the start of Summon, I in the bag easily. I didn't get to practice Summon at the race though, so that's not a good sign. You know, you have to have that confidence going into the. I did not. I think that came and bit me in the butt.
Most definitely. Sometimes that can just happen, but it was a very good race. It was a very clean race overall. Were there any chapters you were particularly happy about?
I was pretty happy with chapters 3 and 4, and even 5. I messed up a bit at the beginning of chapter 5, but it still turned out to be pretty good for my standards.
Yeah, 3 and 4 looked very fluid. Absolutely fluid.
Yeah.
Is your PB accurate? Is it the 37:19?
That is accurate.
Okay. So just barely. So you'll have to get it in the next match you play.
That's the plan. Yeah. Chapter 6, when I was doing the battling boost. Like, I'm playing on PlayStation 4, so there for 5 months. So we still crashed the game instead of getting stuck on the ground.
Yeah.
I inched my way forward, and a couple little things that really grinded my gears and caused a lot of little deaths that cost a good amount.
Absolutely. Once you get to that level of play, it's not even about major mistakes anymore. It's really just about kind of these small issues here and there that really nickel and dime you.
For sure.
Any other thoughts? Any other comments on the race?
Not much. Hope that King Captain finishes out strong here.
Yep, so far it's been a very good summit. He's been coming up very, very quick. Just couldn't quite make up the time difference between you two.
Sure.
Yeah, but it feels like it's been a good race. And congratulations again on your win. I believe because you have won, you will be playing either Revolution or Gix, depending on how the outcome of their match comes yet.
Fun. Revo earlier in group play, and yeah, you know, as Revo does, he beats people, so to play him again.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your night. Congratulations again on your victory.
Thank you as well. See you later.
All right, moving on here. King Captain is just finishing up. Just a couple of flags to go here. Looks like it's going to be about a sub 42 run, maybe about a 41:30, depending on how these next couple of flags go. Ooh, and skipping flag 2. which unfortunately means, again, you can skip flags, and it's something that you see. There are a couple of flags that players will end up skipping. I think most notably is flag 8, but it is a little bit risky, and you can see it occasionally does come back to bite you a little bit, unfortunately. There we go. And the flag is in hand, so King Captain can move forward towards that last flag, knowing that there is a safety net to fall back on if it is required. There we go, and we are at flag 1, so we're just moments away from seeing the end of the summit here for King Captain. And that is time, 41:55. Very fine race. We'll see if we're going to get King Captain in here as well. We'll take just a moment to see if he would like to. All right. Okay, we are going to go ahead and move on. Again, that is a victory for sonic33blaster, who is going to remain moving on and will be playing either Revolution or Gix, depending on the outcome of their game. Their game has not yet been scheduled, but what has been scheduled is Sneaky vs. Taggerson. That's going to be on Speed Gaming 4 in just an hour, so 10 p.m. Eastern. And again, that is Speed Gaming 4, Sneaky vs. Taggerson. Should be a very exciting match. For now, that's all we're doing here on Speed Gaming 3 as far as I know. So I am going to see you all later. Again, this has been Rack the Kitty. Thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your night. Take care.